this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. Kitchen time again. This is the only thing outstanding on my list at the moment. I've got a Miltoniopsis in a pot full of unknown that I don't like the look of, and I'm waiting for it to dry off a bit before I even think about that. But this little thing is, it could be in bark. The bark on the top could be disguising something, but either way, like with all my other Tulumnias, I want it mounted. Yeah, I thought as much. It's just been plunked in the pot. But we've got live roots. That's all I was really interested in. Put some moss up round the base, which I will wash off. But it's got some good roots. I would not say it's an extensive root system, but it's got some, and it's got enough to be able to get it on a mount. But I need to get the older moss out, and yeah, I think it'll lend itself nicely to a mount. I like the spikes to arch, and although this spike is upright, and it has got another spike coming somewhere. Where is it? Down here. There is a second spike starting at the moment. But the number of fans on this plant is quite good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 7 or 8 fans on this plant. That's a good plant. And I don't obviously want to set it back. But yeah, I'll give it a rinse. Even though I'm going to put some more moss around the roots, I don't know how old this moss is. I'd rather it had fresh moss, so I'll just give it a rinse. Yeah, I've got some actual root tips, and it's deceptive on Tulumnias because their roots do go brown, and it's sort of how they are. They're not necessarily dead. I mean, obviously if they go all wispy and spindly and fall off, then yes they are, but they only seem to stay white when they're new, and then as they age they do go brown. I've never had any not do that, so I can only think that's how they grow. So I'll go and find myself some wood or bark. Oh, excuse me. And again? Nope. Yes, one should do it. You shouldn't need 2 sneezes. It's very early in the day at the moment. I don't normally mess about with plants at this time of day. I've got a few sheaths to remove, not many. Excuse me. Anyway, I'll go and find myself a piece of bark and get the paraphernalia out, and we'll get that one on a mount. Like the others. I'll be back. Okay, I've found a nice little piece of bark. Nice and gnarly. I'm not quite sure what that is. Given the way it's been cut, I think it's English oak. I found a guy who sells the Spanish cork oak pieces. He actually owns some land in Spain where he owns the trees effectively, and he harvests the cork and sells it on eBay now and again. And he also has some what I call ordinary oak as opposed to cork oak, which he sells, which I believe they are a type of oak that again possibly comes from Spain, but may actually come from the UK. But he sells those in much smaller pieces as a job lot, so you get 5 or 6 assorted pieces for a few pounds. Saves me wandering aimlessly round the forest trying to find some fallen trees. And English oak is a pain when you're trying to collect it yourself, because when the trees fall, you know, they come down in storms and things like that, they obviously start to decay. And when they're freshly fallen, that bark does not want to come off. But as they start to rot, the bark goes with it. So there comes a point where the bark comes off the trunk easily, but it's already rotting. So it's lost its properties, it's gone too far. You have to catch them just right. So there is a lot of wandering around aimlessly looking for fallen trees, and then seeing if the bark is in a suitable state to actually take off the trunk. And quite honestly, if it comes off easy, chances are the bark's not a lot of good and won't last that much longer. So good fun. Right, now most of the older fans are around that part of the plant, so that's the part that's going on the back. And that mount might look a little small on the surface, but Tolumnias don't need a lot of growing room, they really don't. I'm going to put my first loop round the plant before I attempt to put any moss on, because otherwise it's only going to fall off. So I just want one loop just to hold the plant in place. Then I can gently put some moss on. It's not going to get a lot, it's only enough really to, while we've still got some of the growing season left. My Tolumnias bare rooted were drying out far too fast. Now obviously there's a way round that, just water them more often, but I can't be doing with watering a set of plants up to 3 times a day to actually keep them hydrated, because they were just drying far too fast. With the high air movement I've got and the temperatures in the growing season, they just dried too fast. So I put some moss round them, probably temporarily. The idea being that they stay wet just that little bit longer. But the moss is on the top, yeah, it's not underneath the roots, so if I choose to take the moss off at any point, it'll just lift off. The idea being that by then the roots will have attached, so it can stay bare rooted. I mean, ideally the ties can come off at some point down the line, but fishing line for very fine roots like this is not a big deal. It doesn't cut into the plant or anything, and it's virtually invisible, so I quite like it. I know others don't, but you know, for me, bits of string and stuff and other things, garden wire and stuff like that, doesn't look very elegant, so something that's virtually invisible suits me. Now there's no tag for this, it's an unnamed hybrid, so there we go. That's it, short and sweet. And the other new spike's coming out sideways, so hopefully that will arch. I mean, this one has been grown in such a way that the spike is bolt upright. Well, that one's already set in place, I can't do anything with that. Just while I'm there, this was just plonked in this bark. Now I don't know what this bark is, but that is flipping good quality bark. It's rock hard. It's not Orchiata because it's the wrong colour, but whatever it is, it's blooming good stuff. Now I wonder, knowing where this came from, I wonder whether I could send an email on eBay and actually find out if that person owns this bark, or whether they just bought the plant in and it was already in that and then sold it on. You can never tell. Excuse me. That is good bark. I'm impressed with that. Anyway, that's that little Tolumnia done. That can now go in a suitable place where I can view the blooms, which is not its home. That's not where it will actually live. But while it's in bloom, I'll have it in a place where I can see it. Those are lovely blooms. That is, it's not just the orange, it's the orange and the yellow and the red. Tolumnia's beauty is often in the combinations of colours rather than the individual colours. It's the way they are shaped and everything, and they still are one of my favourites. But that orange isn't just orange, it's streaked. It's actually a stunning little bloom. I might attempt to try and find a name for that one. It may well be good enough that somebody named that and registered it, and maybe not, we shall see. Anyway, thanks for dropping by, see you next time.